If you buy a land that already has a C of O and you don't process a governor's consent, you are an illegal occupant. And if government place demand on that land, government will end up compensating the previous owner whose name is under C of O. Yes. Hey there, my name is Richard, the Estate Pro. So I'll be sharing about the two documents that makes you a legal occupant. Yes, one of that document is Certificate of Occupancy and the other one is governor's consent. Sometimes I hear people say, what's the link or the connection between a C of O and a governor's consent, and at what point are you meant to get a C of O, and at what point are you meant to get a governor's consent? So let's start with the C of O. How do you get a C of O? One, you get a C of O when you buy into a property or an estate that already has a C of O. The other way of getting a C of O is when you buy a land that does not have a C of O, you then have to facilitate or process the C of O. For example, Mr. Nnamdi bought a land from a family and he was given a family receipt and a deed of assignment. What Mr. Nnamdi is meant to do to become a legal occupant of that land is to process for a C of O. And how to process for that C of O is meant to first process a registered survey. Yes, you are meant to first process a registered survey. After getting the registered survey, you then proceed to apply for a certificate of occupancy. And the documents that will be required is the family receipt, the deed of assignment, and the registered survey plan. That is what to use to process or apply for your certificate of occupancy. Now let's talk about the governor's consent. Who needs a governor's consent, and at what point do you need a governor's consent? You need a governor's consent when you buy into a land that already has a C of O. Yes, you need a governor's consent when you buy into a land that has a C of O. When you buy into a land that has C of O, you don't need another C of O in your name. Rather, what you need is a governor's consent. So all you need is the deed of assignment given to you by that developer or whoever, or if it's an individual. That deed of assignment, if it's a C of O land, that deed of assignment will have to carry the reference number of the C of O. So you can use that and process a governor's consent. Now, this is the implication. Why? Because when you buy into a land that already has a C of O, you are meant to facilitate for a governor's consent. That way, they will transfer the legal ownership of that land from the previous owner to you.